The morning sky over France burned orange with the first light of dawn. A young pilot stood by his fighter plane, his eyes scanning the horizon. His name was Adolf Galland, a man destined to become one of the most legendary aces in history. But at this moment, he was just another pilot, waiting for the signal to take off. The war had only begun, and no one could imagine how this man's courage and defiance would make him both a hero and a target. But on this day, something was about to happen that would change his fate forever. Galland climbed into his Messerschmitt Bf 109, the heart and soul of the Luftwaffe's fighter force. As the engine roared to life, he felt the familiar vibration of power beneath his boots. The Battle of France had turned the skies into chaos. Machine guns rattled, smoke trails crossed the horizon, and death danced in every cloud. Yet Galland was calm. Flying wasn't just duty, it was freedom. Every time he took off, he felt alive, as if the earth itself could never hold him down. But that feeling of freedom would soon be tested by his own leaders. By the time the Battle of Britain began, Galland had already become a rising star in the Luftwaffe. His sharp instincts, deadly accuracy, and cool nerve earned him respect from his comrades and fear from his enemies. The British called him the Gentleman Ace because of his daring yet disciplined style. But as he shot down more and more enemy aircraft, Galland began to see something deeper. The enemy pilots he fought were brave too. He respected them, even admired their skill. And soon, that respect would lead him into a dangerous argument with the Führer himself. In 1940, Galland was summoned to meet Adolf Hitler. The Führer wanted to congratulate his young ace, who had already downed dozens of enemy aircraft. But Galland wasn't the type to bow easily. During the meeting, Hitler asked, "What do you need to win this war in the air?" Galland looked him straight in the eye and said calmly, "A squadron of Spitfires." The room fell silent. Everyone froze. No one ever joked with Hitler. But Galland wasn't joking. He meant it. He respected the British Spitfire's design. It was fast, agile, and deadly. Hitler's smile faded, and Galland's days of safety were over. Despite his boldness, Galland was promoted. His skill was too great to ignore. He was soon appointed General der Jagdflieger, the general of all German fighter pilots, at just 29 years old. It was an incredible honor, but also a curse. Galland wanted to protect his men, but he was trapped between his pilots and the high command, who cared more about politics than survival. He fought for better aircraft, better fuel, and more freedom for his pilots. He believed the Luftwaffe should fight as professionals, not pawns. But every time he spoke up, he made new enemies, not in the sky, but in Berlin. As 1943 arrived, the skies over Germany turned into a graveyard. Allied bombers came in endless waves, and Galland's fighter groups were pushed to the limit. His pilots, once confident, were now exhausted and outnumbered. Galland watched friends die every week, young men barely old enough to shave. Still, he refused to give up. He personally flew missions to boost morale, leading by example, not from a desk. In the cockpit, he found peace again, until the radio crackled with screams of burning engines and falling planes. It was a war no one could win anymore. But Galland refused to stop fighting. By late 1944, Germany was collapsing. The Luftwaffe was shattered. Yet Galland had one last hope, a miracle machine, the Messerschmitt Me 262, the world's first jet fighter. It was faster than anything in the sky, a weapon that could change the war. But Hitler wanted to use it as a bomber instead of a fighter. Galland protested furiously. He argued that the jet's true power was in air combat, not bombing cities. Hitler exploded with rage and accused him of disloyalty. Galland knew his fate was sealed. He had just defied the most powerful man in Germany, and the walls were closing in. Stripped of his command, humiliated, and watched by the Gestapo, Galland's career seemed over. But even now, his pilots refused to abandon him. In the final months of the war, they secretly formed JG-44, a special squadron of elite pilots flying the Me-262, with Galland as their leader once again. They called themselves Galland's Circus. Against all odds, they took to the skies, striking Allied bombers and fighters with unmatched speed. For a brief moment, Galland felt alive again, a soldier doing what he was born to do. But destiny had one final twist waiting in the clouds. During a mission in early 1945, Galland's jet was hit. The cockpit filled with smoke, alarms screamed, and flames licked at his legs. At 500 miles per hour, he fought to regain control, barely managing to eject before the jet exploded. Parachuting down, he landed in a field, injured but alive. As he looked up, the German sky that had once made him a hero was now filled with enemy planes. The war was lost. His nation was in ruins. Galland was captured by Allied forces soon after. But unlike many others, his story didn't end in defeat. After the war, Adolf Galland was not treated as a villain. Even his former enemies respected him. British and American pilots admired his honesty and courage. He was invited to advise and even fly with Allied test pilots. Years later, he helped rebuild the post-war German Air Force, the new Bundesluftwaffe, dedicated not to conquest, but to defense. He lived quietly after retirement, writing books and attending air shows where young aviators looked at him with awe. But what made Galland truly legendary wasn't just how he fought. It was how he stood up for what he believed. In the end, Adolf Galland's story wasn't about winning or losing a war. It was about integrity in the face of tyranny. He was a man who dared to speak the truth, even to Hitler himself. A man who saw honor in his enemies, loyalty in his comrades, and beauty in the open sky. When he died in 1996, the world remembered him not just as a German ace, but as a symbol of the pilot's code: courage, skill, and respect for the sky. Because legends aren't born from victory alone. They're born from standing tall, even when the world falls apart.